Hey, what's up, Hawkeye fans? Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register, Tyler Tachman of the Des Moines Register. Tyler, it's almost basketball season, right? So, are you pretty pumped?
Yes, I'm very. First exhibition is down in the women's exhibition on Wednesday, but yeah, regular season's getting close to starting.
All right. So, the men's exhibition was Friday. So, give us your quick takes off that before we get started. While the football crowd is gathering here.
Yeah. Um, I mean, it wasn't like an emphatic blowout, but the team they were playing was pretty good. Even though for given that it was an exhibition, they were pretty competitive. I mean, the biggest takeaway was that Peyton Sanford, Owen Freeman, and Josh Dix were as a trio were really, really good, and I think
Mhm.
that's what you expected going into the season. They showed that they can each kind of be the alphas in scoring. I think there's a little bit of a unknown around them right now, but it I was definitely a work in progress right now, but there was some positive signs I think to come out from it.
All right, more to come. More to come on Hawkeye hoops. Let's transition to Iowa football. It is Wisconsin week. Always a fun week. Always enjoy this matchup. It's usually two tightly matched teams. It looks that way again this year. But obviously, Tyler, you and I covering the Hawkeyes come into this with a brand new uh, storyline. There's a new starting quarterback to get used to. Brendan Sullivan, the guy that Iowa fans have been wanting for a while, who showed out on Saturday, led Iowa to 37 points, including 35 in a span of just over 15 minutes. Does get the start. I mean, I guess that was pretty expected for this Saturday, but I guess the bigger news today was Kirk Ferentz officially ruling Cade McNamara out of Saturday's game with a concussion that he suffered during the game on Saturday. I guess before we get into Brendan Sullivan, let's talk a little bit about Cade because that is a big injury, whether fans want to agree with it or not. That really thins out Iowa's quarterback situation, and we'll get to the backups here soon. But what did you make of Cade already being ruled out for Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Ferentz seemed I don't know if I want to say hopeful, but he didn't say he's done for the season, basically. And so it seems like it's still, I guess, up in the air of when he returns. But, I think Iowa fans wanted to see Brendan Sullivan, but not in the case of Cade McNamara being hurt, because you would like to have both of them available and be able to, if for some reason something were to happen to Brendan Sullivan, to be able to have Cade McNamara as an option. But now that's not the case against Wisconsin, and just keeping Brendan Sullivan healthy now becomes even more important because you obviously, he's gonna run more. He's not as or he's more willing to kind of put his stick his nose into the fray and run the ball. So, anyways, but yeah, I mean it's a hit just in terms of the room as a whole and not having that depth and kind of experience to it. Now we get the Brendan Sullivan era underway, but there is just more emphasis on making sure that he stays healthy.
Let's talk a little bit more about Cade here because a big question was why did Iowa put him back into the game on Saturday if he was concussed? You would have to surmise that, and based on the way Ferentz talked today, that the concussion occurred on the first interception, the one that didn't count on the roughing the passer call. It was a very physical hit. You could tell during the game, Cade got up and was kind of brushing himself off, uh, and he really wasn't the same after that. He threw a pick six on the next possession, and then that was it. I don't, you know, I know people want some people want hard answers on this, but I don't think it was a case where McNamara was exhibiting concussion symptoms right away. I think he just took a tough hit, was brushing off the cobwebs. And knowing him as a competitor, I don't think he's going to go up to the training staff and say, "Hey, I got to come out of the game." If he's just feeling like he just took a hard hit, I mean, he's a tough guy. Quarterbacks take hard hits, so I didn't have a problem with how that was handled. Ferentz indicated that at halftime, that was when he got ruled out of the rest of the game. So that's kind of where we have it. there, and I don't think he's lying about any of that. I think that's exactly what happened. I think that concussions materialize in different ways. If he was experiencing dizziness, headaches, and then coaches marched him back out there, yes, I would have a problem with that. But I don't think that based on what we've learned, I don't think that was the case.
It was interesting because something I was wondering after the game was like they said that this was pre-planned to give Brendan Sullivan extended action, and it just so happened that they put him in right after Cade threw a pick six, and you're wondering like I don't know like what was with the timing of that, and Kirk Ferentz said that it was like coincidentally that's just when they planned to put him in. So I guess if we're based on his word, Iowa was going to put Brendan Sullivan in at that point in the game, regardless of what Cade McNamara, if he threw a pick six or not. So that's, he offered a little bit of explanation just in terms of the timing of how that worked out.
Yeah, and they said on TV the same thing. I rewatched the broadcast. I know a lot of you heard that when you watched the broadcast as well. Like, this is pre-planned. This was not this is not a reflection on McNamara's play. So that also jives with what Ferentz said about that. And I think whether you want to quibble about whether Sullivan should have been in the third possession or the fourth, Iowa got a quick turnover, if you recall correctly. That was the Schulte pick. And that's when McNamara stayed in the game. It would have been kind of weird to put Sullivan in all of a sudden. I mean, not really, because he's kind of the scoring quarterback, but on a quick change of possession, it wasn't necessarily like expected that Iowa was going to have the ball right then and there. And so you kind of understand putting Cade back in, and it's not like there was a lot of time there, between the previous possession and when Iowa got it back. So anyway, that's the deal. But the bigger issue is, no Cade McNamara this week, and that leaves Iowa in a little bit of a lurch at backup quarterback. I asked Kirk Ferentz if Marco Lainez was available this week. He dodged that question. I would be very surprised, Tyler, if it's not Jackson Stratton as the backup quarterback on Saturday behind Brendan Sullivan. We will see what materializes there. But, Ferentz even referenced that they've, after Stratton, it is a high school quarterback who they did not recruit as a quarterback, and he didn't want to reveal who that was. I got the quotes. I'll find the quote here somewhere, but it was pretty funny. It wasn't on the transcript, but I found the quote. I went through my recording. He's like, I'll find it while you talk. But yeah, it's a dicey situation. And, Sullivan, it almost feels like we're back to last year where, oh my God, if Sullivan gets hurt, you're down to a Deacon Hill level quarterback.
Yeah, well, the good news is that we're deeper in the season than, last year when Cade McNamara got hurt. So you don't feel like you have to endure it for as long. But again, Brendan Sullivan is, more of a runner. That's something that his mobility, and that's part of the reason why I think there's so much kind of intrigue and excitement around him, because that's something he can add to the game. But the downside of that is that, there is more of a risk of him getting injured. But I also feel like, we talked after the Michigan State game kind of like, what is Iowa playing for? Like, what can this season amount to? And I feel like since then, the win against Northwestern, but also Brendan Sullivan coming in and now him starting, like, I just feel more optimistic about the season. Like, just to see something different, to be able to see Brendan Sullivan, a mobile quarterback, not that Iowa can entirely turn its season around at this point, and not that they can get to the college football playoff or make the Big Ten championship. But I just feel like the vibe around the program and around this team and around this season, it's just brightened a lot since that end of that Michigan State game. Because I mean, we were talking basically every week of like, how is Cade McNamara going to play, and is it going to be good enough, and can they finally get any sort? It was just the same old narrative week after week, and this at least kind of adds a little something else, a little more unknown, a little, an extra just kind of dynamic into things that just makes things a little bit more exciting at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people are really excited about the Brendan Sullivan era, and we talked to a lot of players about that today. I think I spent the most time talking to Logan Jones about that. I think we should expect Probably some more RPOs. We saw a little bit of RPO action the other day. A really nice throw from Sullivan to Jarrett Bowie for 14 yards on that play. And then, obviously, Sullivan tucked it and ran several times, including on that 6-yard touchdown run. Some of those runs were actually designed quarterback runs. And I did follow up. Those were basically my 2 lines of questions today were about the backup quarterback and will you limit Sullivan's running because of the backup quarterback situation with no Cade and possibly Jackson Stratton as your backup? And by the way, James Rezar, we should mention, has switched to wide receiver and is hurt. So he's unavailable. So they are down to, I found the quote. It is, I won't tell you who number 4 is right now, and I hope you never find out, with all due respect. It's a guy who played high school quarterback. We're basically out of guys. So there you go. It feels like we're back to last year. That was Ferentz. That was Kirk Ferentz, Iowa football 26th year head coach. But yeah, I think they will limit Sullivan this week, and I don't want to see that because I don't want Sullivan to just all of a sudden become a pocket passer. Now, Ferentz did kind of talk both sides of the fence on that, Tyler, but what did you think of his answer about that when I asked about do you hold the reins back given your backup quarterback situation? Because I think you got to win this game. So I think you got to do whatever it takes to win this game and hope that Cade McNamara is back next week against UCLA just for the depth, if anything else.
I think Iowa, if it wants to, can limit things in a play calling sense, but I don't think that they're going to be able to rein back Brendan Sullivan just like in the way that he plays, because we're still, I feel like, kind of getting to know Brendan Sullivan a little bit. He's kind of expanded his role as the season's going on. It's not like he's been at Iowa for that long, but based on kind of what we've been able to collect about him, he's a really good fit for Iowa in that he's a blue collar, lunch pail type guy, super hard worker, but he's a little bit not as much like Iowa in just like the swagger that he plays with. He's going to play with an edge. He's going to talk trash. There was a kind of a funny story of him in high school. One of the teams he played, like they celebrated touchdowns by like playing motorcycle sounds basically. And he scored a touchdown against them and was like doing like the kind of little revving signal with his hands, like to kind of mock them. So he like that's who he is. And we saw that in the block he made against Northwestern of like, he is just, I mean, he's a dog. He's going to give every single ounce that he has out there. He's going to chirp and let people know. So that to me is just the impression I'm getting about who he is. And I think it makes it exciting to watch. I mean, Logan Jones said of how easy it is to get behind a guy like that. He actually said there was a play against Northwestern where Brendan Sullivan was so out of breath because he had been running that they couldn't. No one understood what he was saying, like what the play was. So I think that's just part of the whole. You just feel it's just a little bit more excitement around, just kind of the guy that he is, not only just for this season, but you also feel like
right.
for the season to come.
Yeah, that's the I think that's the other exciting part about this for Iowa football fans is that you get kind of a 4-game audition here, 4.5 game audition for Brendan Sullivan. You get November to see what he can be for 2025. You don't have to go into 2025 completely in the dark about what Sullivan can bring to the Hawkeyes. And what's around Sullivan minus Reese Vanderzee and minus Addison Ostrenga, who are both out this week, is a pretty healthy offensive group. I mean, you couldn't say that necessarily for Deacon Hill last year, in fairness to Deacon Hill. And you couldn't say that in 2022 surrounding Spencer Petras. He had very poor health around him, especially at wide receiver. And so I think Sullivan is set up to – we're set up to see Sullivan at his best. Now, they don't have the greatest receivers in the country, obviously, but we do expect Luke Lachey to come back this week as well. So he's got Caleb Johnson. He's got a veteran, pretty productive offensive line thus far, and he should be able to show what he has. So I think that's exciting too, because then if he's not that great this month, and he might not be, we don't know that. We've seen a very little bit of him. We like what we've seen so far, but still need to see him against a better defense. I mean, Northwestern, not a great team. Can he win this week against a tough Wisconsin team? Can he go win 2 games on the road at Maryland, at UCLA, then at Maryland, and then, beat Nebraska on Black Friday? These are not like gimmies. And so these are all going to be good tests for Brendan Sullivan. And I think it's exciting in that respect too.
And it's just like to have a quarterback that can extend plays. Like this is what Iowa fans have really wanted, back between whether it's Spencer Petras, Deacon Hill, or Cade McNamara. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be. I don't know if I would consider Brendan Sullivan a dual threat guy. I mean, I don't know if that would be overblowing it, but he's certainly a mobile quarterback that can make plays with his legs. So just to, is Iowa's passing game going to be lethal with Brendan Sullivan? I would be surprised if it was. But just to be able to add another ingredient of being able to extend a play or being able to pull the ball or just the threat of it, we've seen how much that can help Caleb Johnson in the running game. So it's a new look for Iowa football. It's going to be interesting. I think Brendan Sullivan's skill set just fits Tim Lester in what he wants to do probably so much better in a natural sense of being able to do the RPO type stuff, being able to be more creative, maybe with a little bit of QB I can't mobility. Good gosh, there you go.
Did it?
I went
folks.
about 0 for 7 on mobility, but I think it's more of what Tim Lester kind of did at Western Michigan and the success that he had there with that offense. So, in the fact that Tim Lester now he gets a full week to prepare that game plan for Brendan Sullivan, knowing that he can kind of mold it around him. So.
Yeah, and I think Marco Linez is also in that mold. Now he's probably even a more mobile threat than Sullivan is because Marco is a pretty tough runner. But Brandon does have some wheels. I was really impressed with the wheels he showed on that block downfield. Or maybe Johnny Pascuzzi's just that slow, potentially.
Maybe both.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. And then I think the James Rezar move, I had heard, maybe he really wasn't throwing the ball very well in the little they saw. And they're like, hey, here's a 6'4" guy with 6'3", 6'4" guy with track speed. Let's get him to receiver now. And it's a shame that he is hurt because he probably could have been an emergency type quarterback. There's speculation out there of who this mystery quarterback could be. The two best guesses that Tom Kakert and I came up with, because he's Mr. He knows more about recruiting than I do. Were Zach Lutmer, who was a state champion quarterback and a really good RPO quarterback, but he doesn't know the offense as well. So the other option that came up was maybe Max White. Maybe he was a quarterback at Cedar Rapids Kennedy, obviously knows the offense, not like a big part of the rest of the offense's plans. Again, you're going to get you hope you don't get to that point, and you would think you probably wouldn't, but I'm sure whoever it is, they've got to give him like a few reps, just in case this week. So anyway, where was I going? Oh, James, Rezar, not in the plans. I think for sure they're going to go at the portal and quarterback this offseason no matter what. Even if Brendan Sullivan's really good. Right now, your backups going in next year would be, Marco Linez potentially and Jimmy Sullivan, a true freshman, or Pat Fitzgerald's son if he stays at quarterback. So you would think, unless Jackson Stratton, they just really are impressed with him. You did a little story on how about you, Tyler, doing a little, when Jackson Stratton signed, it was like, oh, okay. But you were savvy enough to do a little story on Jackson, just so people know who he is, Tyler. You talked to him, right? Didn't you talk to him? He's a walk-on from Colorado State.
Yeah, it was kind of like a little.
Is he? In case he gets in the game Saturday, give people a sense of who Jackson Stratton is.
No, yeah, he was kind of like almost like a little bit of a trade with Tommy Paholski, because that's where he ended up, right, from Iowa. So, yeah, I mean he doesn't really have a lot of playing experience. He seemed like very confident his abilities. So there's not a lot of he doesn't have much. I think he's very similar to Deacon Hill in that sense, where Iowa got him not necessarily not to bring up bad memories or anything, but like Iowa got him not thinking that they're gonna have to throw him in there. He hasn't really played much at all in college, so I think you hope that it's not gonna get to that point, but maybe it's closer to that than we might think. But I mean, the other thing too with Brendan Sullivan is that when Iowa got him is that we talked about, well, is there going to be a chance that he doesn't begin the season as a starter but ends up coming in as a starter, and this is where we're at now. Like it's reached that point where Cade McNamara has a concussion, and it's kind of come to fruition in that sense. But this is a third consecutive season where he's now kind of becoming a starter during the middle of the season. So there's a lot of value in that. He's been in this situation before in 2 separate seasons. So I think you just feel good about his comfortability and his experience in this type of role at this time.
So I found your quote, Tyler. I found a quote from a Tyler Tachman story published June 4th, 2024. This is in the annals forever. Jackson Stratton says this of his game to the Register. I'm very accurate with a good arm, and then I'm just pocket mobile. I'm not going to get sacked. I'm not the fastest guy in the world, but I'm not going to get sacked. I'm going to put the ball where it needs to be. So Jackson Stratton, we talked to him, folks.
Yeah.
Me and Tyler.
Yeah.
He's not going to get sacked. So if he gets in the game Saturday and then gets sacked right away, that's going to be kind of cool.
No, I'm glad you brought up that quote because there was about a 0% chance that quote would have been memorable to me this many months later. So I thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, he's 6'4", 193, and from Mission Bay, California. Originally committed to Washington.
Yeah, and there was a coaching staff change, and that's why he didn't go to Washington. But we did see him a little bit in Kids Day at Kinnick. He did get some reps there. It was relatively limited, but I didn't think about it much at the time. Maybe it's worth looking back there now a little bit more, but
yeah, I didn't either. So, yeah, what else? Tyler? We got some injury updates today. No, as I mentioned, no Vanderzee, no Estrenga, no John Nestor, but returning potentially is Bo Stevens at left guard. Iowa did okay there at left guard on Saturday. Actually, Cade Pieper played the majority of the snaps, even though Tyler Ellsbury started. So they got 3 options there on Saturday. Ferentz not committal if Stevens will play, but he did practice. What else? What am I missing?
I think that was mostly the injury, right? I think that was mostly
Lachey would be the other one. Yeah. Big game, obviously, this week. I wrote about kind of the positive November that Iowa's had in the last dating to 2019. Iowa is 18-1 in 19 November games, the only loss being the end of the 2022 season against Nebraska. That was the game in which Cooper DeJean got hurt on the 4th play, and Spencer Petras was knocked out of the game with a sack fumble early in that game. So Iowa was already without Sam Laporta going into that game. So TJ Hall got burned a bunch of times that day. Replacing DeJean by Trey Palmer, who's now with the Tampa Bay Bucks, I believe. So it was kind of a disastrous day. It wasn't like a typical November game is what I'm saying. So Iowa, very good in November. Vibes should be pretty energetic, I think, on Saturday night in Kinnick. You get a night game at Kinnick for the first time this year.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit more background on Sullivan. So he actually thought he was going to play basketball in college. That was kind of his initial, what he felt like he would be taking his college talents to. And he confirmed on Tuesday he can still windmill. He thought he was one of the best players. He believes he's one of the best basketball players on the Iowa football team. He said he didn't know how many people would agree with him on that, but that's how he feels. And then as far as his recruiting process, Northwestern was his only Power 5 offer. He didn't, it sounds like COVID, he came up in that COVID time, so that might have had an impact on it. But how Northwestern came in late in his recruitment, how he actually got them was he went to a elementary school playground with his high school coach because the main stadium was closed at the time because of COVID, and his high school coach FaceTimed the offensive coordinator at Northwestern and basically was just like videoing him on FaceTime doing drills and throwing. And like this was in like a elementary school playground. There was basically like swing sets in the background, and that's how he got the Northwestern offer. So I don't know, just kind of interesting, background about Brendan Sullivan and kind of how, he ended up at Northwestern and then now at Iowa through the portal.
Let's finish up today with just one last thought or two on Cade McNamara. He does remain a captain this week, and I think that it's been easy for a lot of people to jump on his grave, I guess, in college football. But I think it was notable today that so many teammates, especially Logan Jones, at least when I talked to him, really praised what McNamara has meant to this team. If you follow the NFL, I liked what Kirk Ferentz said about the dynamic in Pittsburgh, where Ferentz is a follower of the Steelers, having grown up in Pittsburgh. The dynamic there with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Justin Fields started the first several games of the season for the Steelers. I believe he went 4-2 as a starter, and then Russell Wilson got healthy. Started last week. Started last night. I believe the Steelers are 2-0 since Wilson came back, correct? And it sounds like they have a really good, back and forth relationship. And that seems to be consistent with what is going on with Cade McNamara and Brendan Sullivan. So I think it's a really misguided opinion to think that Cade McNamara is somehow walking away from the team. I heard some of that like Monday. I've heard he's quit the team. He's, all this stuff. And I don't think that's even close to the case. He's a captain this week. Logan Jones said he's going to be out there for the coin toss on Saturday. He couldn't concentrate in meetings on Monday. He was going to try to go back to class today. I think he's going to miss one of his last 2 home games for sure at Kinnick. And I would hope that, as rough as it's been in some ways for McNamara, that he gets a good senior day welcome in a couple weeks against Nebraska.
Yeah, and this was in line with what we heard kind of last season after he had gotten hurt, of him just still being engaged with the team and helping guys out in the way that he could. So, it seems like based on what guys within the program have said that, he's continued to be a leader. He's continuing to sacrifice, what he can for the program. And, maybe just as far as the production on the field, it hasn't exactly worked out, but I don't think, it's not for a lack of him trying or a lack of effort or a lack of his investment in the program.
Yeah, well said. We'll wrap up there, Tyler. Women's basketball with Dargan Southern tomorrow night from Carver Hawkeye Arena. I believe Missouri Western is the exhibition foe. Tyler Tachman and I will be back with your Hawk Central radio show tomorrow, and we'll preview more about the Iowa-Wisconsin matchup. We talked to a lot of defensive players today. Got good stuff from Jamari Harris and Sebastian Castro. Excited to share that stuff with you. I even put a note about Reese Dakin in my thoughts today. It's a really good one. So I hope you guys read that one. It was the 4th one if you want to read down that far. If you make it that far, Tyler. I know sometimes I tell you I'm going to read your story and then it's like 2 hours later and I still haven't read your story, but hopefully you'll read.
That happened on Saturday.
Yeah, it did. But I did read it eventually and read about the Hawkeye basketball team. And I learned a lot from your write-ups. So you do a great job with Iowa men's basketball.
Thank you.
Even if I don't read it right away. Anyway, I hope everyone reads this out there. Hawk Central, Tyler Tachman, Chad Leistikow. We'll talk to you soon.